So recently, I had the most incredible opportunity to co-host a panel at PAX Australia. And it was one of the most incredible things I think I've ever done throughout my career on YouTube, I guess. So I just wanted to make this video talking about it, give you a bit of the behind the scenes about what happened throughout my day, and yeah, just share that experience with all of you, because without all of you, this opportunity may have never come up for me. So I greatly appreciate that.
Yes!
Just quickly for a bit of background, hosting a panel at a convention was always one of those like bucket list things for me that I always wanted to do, because as a fan of YouTube creators, I always watched my favorite channels do panels at PAX and other conventions, and you know, it was some of my favorite content. I love the crowd interaction and the reality of it, because you know, you don't really get that on YouTube because people leave comments and it's all digital, whereas in person, you actually get to hear people laughing, and it's just an incredible experience. So I always wanted to do that. I had been talking with some other creative friends about doing panels previously, but they always just fell through because we were too busy, or you know, people couldn't make it for whatever reason, so we just decided to scrap it. But this one, it actually came completely out of nowhere, unexpected, on the day of PAX. So yeah, let's go through it. So the way this all come about, we was walking the show floor, and I happened to bump into a fan, Cassidy. I've met her previously at PAX pre-COVID. She's very sweet, very nice, always active online, having a chat to and stuff like that. We've been wanting to catch up since before COVID, and so this was the first chance to do that at PAX Australia 2022. And when I bumped into her, she was like, "Hey, do you want to be on this panel I'm doing later?" And I was just sort of like, was not ready for that at all. So I was a bit like flustered and didn't know what to say. I was like, "Yeah, just give me a few hours to think about it." And she's like, "Well, look, the panel's in 3 hours, so I'll need your answer in about 2. It's just like, okay then. The topic of the panel was going to be on late 90s, early 2000s, Y2K gaming, you know, through like the PS1, PS2 era mostly. It's funny because I'd actually seen that listed in the panels that were going to be on at the show. I remember thinking to myself, yeah, like, I don't think I'm going to get anything out of that panel, because like that's what I cover on this channel mostly, so I don't think I'm going to gain anything from viewing it. The irony of that being that I was one of the people participating in that. I just think that's funny to think about. So for the most part, I just went about the day like normal, just hanging out with friends and laughing, taking the piss, and just exploring the showroom floor. Not really thinking about the panel whatsoever. Now, every single year that I have attended PAX in the past, I have applied for influencer badges, and not a single time have I been accepted. So, you know, I always just go as a casual fan, you know, it's time off work, just exploring the convention, that sort of thing. So, one of the things I was really excited to do this year was to meet Jazza from, you know, Jazza Art on YouTube. One of my favourite creators, Australian. He was having a meetup with Tabletop Time, his secondary channel, and I really wanted to just meet him and shake his hand and get a picture, so I went up and lined up for that with about an hour before the panel was supposed to start. And so I'm in line, and it's taking forever, and despite having a disability access pass, they didn't let us through any quicker. It was a real headache. You know, I'm messaging Cassidy, she's like, "Oh, are you going to do the panel with me or not? We need to go over it." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, like, I'm sorry, I'm stuck in line to meet Jazza." It's like, I could have just left, but that was one of the only things I was really looking forward to doing, so I didn't really want to bail. And then so Cass, like an absolute champ, ran from the other side of the convention center to come find me, hand me a special guest presenter pass, and that allowed me to flash that to the guy running managing the line, and it pretty much allowed me to skip the line, and then I got to meet Jazza and shake his hand and get a photo, which was really cool moment for me. He wished me luck on the panel, and then we ran the whole length of the convention center back, and that's when I was introduced to the crew doing the panel. I've never met any of them before aside from Cass, but a few of them have heard of me, probably through Cass, just blabbing on about the channel, I don't know, but they were all really cool, really nice group, and we pretty much went from there and headed upstairs to start setting up. Really took talking to my partner Donnie, as well as another mate Wongers from Game and Wongers. He was like, "Yeah, dude, you should go and do it. You should go and do it." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fuck it, I'll do it." We get upstairs as the previous panel was emptying out, and we had about 15-20 minutes to start setting up. And so, since these guys had prepared the entire panel on their own, and I wasn't even supposed to be included, I was quickly given a rundown of what was going to happen. Here are my notes that I kept from the panel of everything that was supposed to go through, most of which didn't even end up happening because it was just fly by the seat of your pants, just calamity. The main points that I wanted to actually prepare answers for, that I knew I would struggle with off the top of my head, I wrote down some cheat answers just to sort of jog my memory in the moment. None of which really came into effect because those were the questions that got scrapped. At that point, the microphones were being set up and tested, and someone just yelled out, "Now's the last time to go to the toilet." And so I was like, okay, I'll go to the toilet, and I stepped outside, and oh my god, the line to get in was massive. I was like a bit like awestruck. I sort of stepped out the door and was just like, oh my fucking god, what the fuck? I like ran to the toilet and pissed, and then I come back out and I'm walking along this line. There were so many people there. Like there was about 250 people in that room, possibly. But there was maybe 500 people lined up to get in. We had to turn away so many people because the place was so full, and it was such a popular panel. And yeah, walked in as everyone else was walking in, and it begun.
Welcome to a deep dive into late 90s and early 2000s gaming nostalgia! Woo!
It was such a surreal feeling, having always wanted to do a panel at a convention and just sitting up there with that perspective and watching people walk in while we're figuring out our last things. I really made sure to sit and just take a moment to let it all sink in and just, visualize that. I can still see it in front of me now like it's happened yesterday. It was just a surreal feeling, and I made sure to get the phone footage of showing off the whole crowd and stuff like that. But even at this point, I really wasn't that nervous. The thing is like, I've never been a good public speaker, which might surprise people. In school, whenever I would have to stand up in front of the class and, perform an essay or something like that, it was the worst. I would skip school. I would ask to do it in front of the teacher alone. I would rely on other classmates to do the majority of the work. I remember in one time in high school specifically, I forget what the topic was, but it was my turn to speak, and up in front of the entire class, my knees were like shaking so much from anxiety that they were banging together. And some dickhead was actually like, "Oh, what's that noise? What's making that noise?" And just made it worse. Earlier in 2022, I was asked as a favour for a friend to go and speak at a youth employment office for kids with disabilities or kids struggling to find their way into work. And they had a group that was really interested in, social media and creative careers, art, being artists, being YouTubers, streamers and stuff like that. And so as a favour, I said, yeah, I'll go in and talk to them and just talk about my experiences and stuff like that. And that, I don't have any footage of that, but it was a pretty fun experience. It was awkward at first because I'm just sort of standing up there in front of a bunch of kids and like, didn't really know what to say. I say kids, they were, late teens, early 20s. But yeah, once we all got comfortable and people started to interact and we got that flow going, it was a really positive experience for everyone, I think. And especially for me, it scratched that itch and proved that I could do more public speaking stuff if I wanted to. And I think having that experience, that one experience in the back of my mind going into this panel, really helped me to be confident. It also helped that my friends and my partner were right there in the front row, so if at any point I was feeling anxious, I could just look towards them and, be like, okay, it's just like I'm talking to these guys, I'm always talking to these guys. The funny thing was, though, is that I kind of suspected, I had the feeling that my friends would be the harshest critics of the panel. Myself, along with everyone else on the panel crew, just, getting into it, talking about our gaming memories and favourite games from that era and stuff like that. seeing my friends just genuinely having a good time and enjoying it, I was like, okay, if they're having fun, then everyone else is going to be having fun too. It's funny, there was one guy in the front row on the other side. He was in a Pokemon outfit. He was dressed up as Pikachu with face paint, and the entire time he just sat there like this. And I just kept looking at him because I'd seen him around the convention floor earlier through the day. He just constantly looked like that. I was like, sorry if that was you. It just made me laugh. And then someone mentioned Pokemon as one of their favorite games or whatever, and he just went like this. And had the biggest grin on his face, which was just hilarious. Like, even after the panel ended, I was walking the show floor and I bumped into him again and he still had that big smile. I'm like, oh man, we did a good job, we got him. Now, because there was so many people trying to get in, there was a lot of calamity, and unfortunately, the crew's cameraman that was supposed to film the entire panel somehow got left outside and wasn't allowed in, and so, unfortunately, there's no high-quality footage of the panel, but thankfully someone filmed with their phone in the front row for the entire hour-long panel, so we do have footage of it. I'm going to upload that, so you can check that out if you're interested in seeing the full thing. So the guys had planned to do some like crowd interactive stuff, like guess the soundtrack, guess the sound effect, guess the console boot up sound, things like that. It's kind of funny because since I wasn't involved in any of the planning process, all of that was just completely blind to me, and I wasn't, I didn't have any for people to guess. It's unfortunate because the panel was quite one-sided. It leaned very PlayStation and Nintendo heavy, didn't get into a lot of Sega and Xbox stuff, not that that's my area anyway, but I feel like with my knowledge I could have made sure that it was a more balanced panel. That was probably the biggest critique that I would have had on us as a whole, but in general, everyone spoke incredibly well. Everyone looked great up on stage. They all cosplay and do that sort of stuff, so I looked really out of place, just sat up there in my Jack and Daxter shirt. So one of my friends handed me some cat ears with little bells on them, so just so I'd fit in, you know, so I didn't look out of place up there. Yeah, that was really the only critique I had myself, was that it was a bit, you know, one-sided, I would say. But that's fine. That's fine. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. Whenever something a bit more, whenever something a bit off-topic would get mentioned that a few people liked, they'd yell out and scream in the crowd, and like that feeling when like you say something and just that visceral, guttural, like, yeah, I fucking love that game. Like, oh, it makes you so happy, and you can see it on my face just how happy I am getting those reactions. Just to say, going over the same stuff, because for me, I grew up as a PlayStation kid, but definitely there's a special memory associated with the Super Nintendo. Yes! Yeah. And it just made the entire, not just the day, but the whole convention for me, getting to do that. And yeah, it really opened my eyes that this public speaking thing is something that I could pursue more in the future. I definitely want to do more panels in the future with different people on different topics. So yeah, stay tuned for more information on that as the yearly rotation of conventions come around. So because I have my partner in the front row, we play a lot of the games and watch a lot of the movies together for whatever I'm talking about on the channel. The current video I was working on at the time was Grandma's Boy review, the movie, in relation to the cancelled video game Demonic, which has just gone up on the channel recently. In that movie, there is a terrible quote where the guy is like, oh, this game, it's very Miyamoto, and we just thought that was the most awful quote. It was an in-joke, basically. And at one point, a Shigeru Miyamoto quote was said during the panel, and me, straight face, just looked at my partner in the front row and said, yeah, that's very Miyamoto. Yeah, that's very Miyamoto. The crowd was dead silent, but like, no one, it wasn't so silent that you knew that like a joke didn't land, because we just kept moving on to the next thing. I imagine most people in the audience would have just been like, oh yeah, that is something Miyamoto said. But like, my partner, he gave me the most disgusting, filthy look I think I've ever seen from him in the 2 years we've been together. He was just like, oh my fucking god, I can't believe you just said that in front of all these people and no one knows what's going on except you and me. It's just like... So yeah, I'm quite proud of that one. Cassidy as the host did an incredible job, especially given that English is not her first language. That was actually something I learned on the day at the moment we were doing the panel. You would never know otherwise. The slideshow that they'd prepared had a lot of crappy word art fonts and stuff like that, and my god, like, when you're up on stage, you've got the big screens behind you for the audience to see, and then you have a smaller screen down front so that you can see what everyone else sees, along with the time, so that you don't, talk for too long. And so, from all the way back there, this font was like, it was like blurring over itself, which without my glasses, I can't read that shit. And she's there sitting next to me, struggling to understand it. And, man, I'm just like...
Nostalgic memory.
What a terrible font.
It's like, even with my glasses, I would struggle to read that shit. It was terrible. But for the most part, there were not many technical errors or not many hiccups, and any that there were, they were just kind of funny, and we just kept rolling with the punches. And I think everyone had a good time because the crowd was always loud and vocal. And yeah, I had good reviews from the people in attendance. I was lucky enough, without being advertised on the panel, to have a few viewers in the audience to see it. They had great things to say, which was really, really special. Ending that off and then having people stop by, like, oh, hey, can I get a picture? Oh, man, I fucking live for that shit, yeah. I live for it so much. After the panel as well, which was funny, there was one guy who was very upset with us. So Cass and I are talking, this is where we have to go our separate ways and get on with the day, and we're just chatting, and we're just just over the moon with how well it went. And there's this fucking guy standing there. Now, if you're this guy, I'm sorry that we didn't mention the specific game on PS1 that you wanted us to talk about. Clearly, you already know what that game is, so you didn't need to hear about it from us fucking little kids that don't know what that game is. But yeah, he was like, oh, why didn't you talk about this game? And we're like, oh, we're mostly focused on, this era of gaming. He's like, it is from that era of gaming. It was on PS1. And we're like, oh, sorry, we were mostly focused on the, the popular franchises like Crash and Spyro. And he's like, oh, but it's a really good game. I thought you should talk about it. And we're like, sorry, dude. And he just stormed off really angrily. We were just like, damn, like, he's not happy. And like 3 days later when we left the hotel, we passed him on the street and he still looked pissed off. And I'm like, oh my god, I hope he doesn't try to fucking, like, pick a fight with me. But yeah, that experience was such an incredible bucket list item that I've checked off, and I plan to continuously check off year after year because... honestly, I feel like I found my calling up there on stage. It was incredible, and I want to thank everyone for inviting me along and having me on there. I can't wait to do another one. Thank you to everyone who may have been in attendance and saw it. Just an incredible crowd, incredible reaction. Really good first experience for having a panel. So yeah, I'm just I still can't get the smile off my face, man. It was a year-making highlight for me, absolutely. So yeah, that's an inside look at my first-hand retelling of hosting my first panel. It was an incredible experience with incredible people. I'm so blessed to have been given the opportunity. Definitely go and follow everybody that was on the panel. They do lots of cool cosplay stuff. And yeah, if you want to see the full panel in its entirety, you can click right here and go check that out. Let us know what you think. It was definitely a fun time. Definitely can't wait to do another one. So until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Square-Eyed Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.